I'm so excited to kick off the first panel. This is going to be such a great event. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you guys for joining us today here in beautiful Miami. My name is Rachel Wolfson. I'm a journalist. I write for Crypto News, Cointelegraph, and I'm the podcast host and founder of Web3 Deep Dive. Before we get started, I just want our panelists to briefly introduce themselves. So let's start with you, Jim.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Jim Nasr. I'm the CEO at a company called Acoer. We have actually been around since the very beginning with Hedera. So I know many of you guys and great to see you all. We're focused on innovation in healthcare and very much believe in this concept of imputing computational trust and have been doing that for the last 7 years with Hedera. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mrinal, CEO of Prove AI. We're building an AI governance solution that provides audit, version control, and multi-party access functionality. Very excited to be building this on the Hedera platform.
And I'm Leemon. I'm the co-founder, and I'm really happy to be on stage with you guys and talking about this. This is exciting stuff you guys are doing.
Wonderful. Well, we are all excited, and we are going to be speaking about AI and DLT today. So I guess the first question is, and this is for all of you, if you could just briefly define what tokenization means to you. So Jim, do you want to start?
Start with the tough one. In our world of healthcare, just to be kind of clear, I think it's important to talk real as opposed to perspective, because we have a real business and have to pay bills. So in our world, when it comes to health data, the primary use cases where we are actively dealing with tokenization is actually around data sets. And I give an example. We work with a startup not that long ago where they're getting data through smart cameras, eye scan data, which can be used for all kinds of markers for chronic diseases in particular. And they really wanted to kind of have that data be available in a privacy-preserving way using an NFT. But how do you make that happen? And then how do you create a marketplace? So that was one example. We have poked around, when I say poked around, pilots with patient incentivization. And again, to be clear, in the US, that is not one that, Rachel, you know this very well from our back in the days and, in the early 2017 ICO days, everybody wanted to patient incentivization with token economics. But in reality, that really hasn't panned out in the US. I was speaking to Frank, he's here somewhere from NSC. There we go, Frank. I firmly believe that's a use case that for instance, in Nairobi, in Kenya, we're seeing evidence of this. That use case of affecting human patient behavior with tokenization will work. Just not in the US at the minute, but that's what I have right now.
Wonderful.
I'll answer specifically in the AI meets DLT use case. We view tokenization more as immutable certification of things. What blockchain allows you to do with tokenization? I mean, many people think it's just money or tokens that can be traded, but there's so much more that you can do with it. You could actually tokenize or create an NFT or any sort of primitive that acts as a certificate. Typically if you take Bitcoin or HBAR, these are certificates of ownership. But you can extend that concept to, okay, this is a certificate about all the data that entered your system over this time period. This is a certificate of when you adjusted your AI model. This is a certificate that indemnifies you against PII or copyright risk. And, the beauty of tokenization under a DLT system, given it's really flexible and enables you to do this, gives you the best version of automated certification of things. And we see that every day, right? When you're doing a Bitcoin transaction, it's really just exchanging a bunch of certificates of who knows what. But extending that concept into artificial intelligence means you can also say who did what to these AI models when, and it's truly immutable end to end. So in our use case as well, like people think tokenization only references real world assets, but information process flows are also real assets that need to be measured.
And it's cool. This is an extension, an expanding of what tokens have originally meant. Originally, it meant you own something. That's what the token represents, and you can sell it to other people. Now they own it. But now we're expanding it to have other information. So things like certification, or things like some parts of the history of something, or things like permissioning, all this extra data, this metadata, can be put into a token, and the token be used as a store of information, which is an interesting expansion of what tokens are. And it works well then with HCS, which is the other way of storing information. There, it's about immutably storing historical information. And so you can have the two working together. You can have the tokens not representing ownership, but meta information in a way that can be changed or not changed. You can set it either way. And then HCS for storing information that never changes.
Definitely. Let's talk a little bit about stablecoins and tokenization. I'm curious to know, do you guys think that stablecoins are the killer use case for tokenization?
Stablecoins are important. So they're the grease on the wheels that make a lot of things in digital assets turn easily. Because it goes back to the original problem. Often you and I want to barter, and I can give you something, you give me something. But if we don't want to barter, if we want to have three-way trades where I give you something, you give someone else, and they give me, then you need a medium of exchange in between, and the stablecoins are often useful for that. So it's kind of greases the wheels of commerce and of dealing with other people.
I'd say it is a killer use case, but I'd say it's a killer use case that actually enables other killer use cases. It takes out a lot of call it red tape between systems. Like, for example, if you're using a blockchain or DLT based system that's recording data sets that have been contributed into an AI build, and you want to directly compensate people. People want to be compensated in a currency or whatever format that works for them. So you can have a stable coin that's USD, CHF, any other currency. And given that you can automate all of this through smart contracts, means commerce can happen in a seamless manner. So yes, it is a killer use case, but I think more so because it enables real killer use cases to be done in an automated manner without having to use a financial intermediary like a bank, etc. Because well-curated stablecoins have taken care of all of that, all the regulatory burden on the back end already. So you're just safe to go for it and transact.
I would just add one thing. Those responses were phenomenal. In our use cases, we often think about abstracting blockchain. Really is part of our tech stack, part of our kind of what is really behind the scenes. So in that way, very much so. To be honest with you, my feeling about, I think, again, it's kind of reductive to think about killer apps, but I actually think that AI is really the killer app for DLT. Stable coins is a part of it, for sure. But to me, I see it as part of the plumbing. We're simple-minded, think about kitchens and plumbing and faucets and things like this. But think of it as part of the plumbing of how you build something. And if you can abstract it, where you don't have to have direct interaction, then so much the better in the use cases we have.
Can we talk a little bit about AI and tokenization use cases that we're seeing today and how those relate to real world problems that they're solving? Leemon, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So the question is, well, what problems could there be with AI? And this is something that is new and very powerful. And anything that's powerful can do good things. It can also do bad things. And so a lot of what this comes down to is trust. I'm going to ask an AI questions and it's going to affect my business, or it's going to affect me, or it's going to affect my users. Do I trust what it's saying to me? Well, I don't know. How can I trust an AI? Well, a big part of it is, was it trained on data that I trust? And not only was the data true, because if you have biased data that's false, that's bad, or it could be data that's biased, so that it's going to be tending to give answers that are hurting people through its bias. Or it might be giving answers based on IP that was copyrighted in ways that I shouldn't be doing. There's a lot of questions, and all of these forms of harm that we're talking about that could come from AI are based on, well, how do I trust it? What do I know its background? How do I know its provenance? What do I know its history? That's really what it comes down to. And so what we really need to harness the power of AI for good and to avoid these serious problems, and there's more problems too, but these serious problems is exactly what the people on the stage are doing. So we should hear from them.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, you can go after me. I will add, again, in the context of healthcare. So I do want to lean into what Leemon was saying. Really, the efficacy of the AI is all to do with the data training. So where we do tokenization, we use it across the board, but certainly the data set and basically computational or cryptographically provable verifiability on the data is critically important. But then there's also the impact on the model and the lineage of the model. And that again ties back to being able to, again, using tokens or in other ways, using cryptography, being able to show and prove, what has changed. And then beyond that, kind of like in the post-training phase, looking at really the evaluation of the model and particularly things such as hallucinations. As an example, we're working with the organ data work that we're doing right now. We're working with some public health specialists and ER and ICU physicians who are looking at this organ data that we're surfacing, and and the AI companion, and they're looking at the responses and saying, "Whoa, this doesn't sound right. This information is incorrect." So we're using that again, using tokenization and the DLT to kind of show where we see hallucinations or where we perceive hallucinations or biased data. In some cases, patient privacy information. So that's the practical path that we see, with it.
I agree with everything that's been said here. Let me get very, very specific about our use case and the convergence here. So what we're building is an AI governance solution to make sure you have full transparency and auditability of your underlying AI systems. And the reason that's important, and I won't belabor it, there's three essential problems. One is what Leemon and Jim have alluded to: PII, copyright information, private information, making it into your AI systems. The second is, okay, when that happens, or say a bias or a hallucination happens, what's your recourse? Am I able to perform accurate version control? And thirdly, very important in AI, artificial intelligence, unlike a lot of other tech stacks, is multi-party right out the gate. Your model providers, where you get your data from, who's requisitioning the model, who's maintaining it, and who is auditing it at the end. All of these could be completely different entities. And regardless of regulatory scrutiny or not, although there is a big regulatory environment to make sure that AI is responsible, but even outside of that, for example, SaaS companies are SOC 2 compliant just to prove to their customers that, hey, we are using SaaS products in a responsible way. AI companies will need to do that as well, like regardless of regulatory environment, right? Hey, we know everything that's going into the model. We've scrubbed it for PII. We've scrubbed it for copyright information. And hey, if it goes off the rails, we're able to revert it. The ability to immutably capture all the elements to prove that nothing's gone wrong, the ability to perform version control off of a trusted source of data, and the ability to do it on a multi-party basis, all these three things you only get from DLT technology. The standard database doesn't give you any of these three things. And hence, selfishly, I agree with Jim. One of the biggest killer use cases for DLT is artificial intelligence and monitoring it, making it more transparent. And I think the difficulty some people have with this is they think that's going to stymie innovation. I actually think it's absolutely the contrary. This is what's going to let the industry really blow up. It's like, okay, you have the carriers now, you have your seatbelts. If you start driving a bit too fast, you have a thing that's going to prevent you from a crash. People innovate more when, they feel safer to really push the pedal on things. And that's the kind of tooling we're looking to bring. Stay safe and compliant.
Wonderful. Leemon, did you want to add to that?
Yes, I love the new ideas that you both just brought up. So you mentioned version control. So in most software, you just use the latest version, you're set. But with AI, it's very possible that something's going to go wrong and you're going to need to revert. And then you have an infinite number of versions to revert to. You need to know everything about all those versions and make sure you're using the right version. This is a serious problem. And maybe AI makes it far worse than normal software. You really need to pin down the version control. That's a whole new area. That really is a significant thing. And then you mentioned lineage. I had made it sound like I have a pile of data and I didn't know which pile of data was used for this model. But actually, I may use a pile of data to create a model and then incorporate some more data to train it to create a second model. And then maybe combine models where one of them is looking at the other one during the training itself. I may have a whole tree of the history of all this. It's not just which data set did you use, it's the whole lineage. Really good points.
I do want to, yeah, absolutely. I do want to kind of circle back to what Mrinal was saying about the intrinsic multi-party kind of computation nature of AI, but also the practical reality of what is actually happening. So just last week, I was in in the UK, talked to several folks with this cancer initiatives that we're working on. The actual reality is they're trusting the cloud for everything. Storage, cloud. Data, cloud. Model, cloud. Compute, cloud. Governance, effectively cloud. So that's a problem because the theory sounds different to the reality. And I think that's I kind of feel like it's part of our mission in this room, which is there are ways in which we can have a more decentralized AI. There are ways in which we can make governance more than just the one entity that effectively controls everything. Even for compute, though, performance is a real issue. Even for compute, we can go closer to edge AI and certainly outside of just one cloud. So I kind of feel like, again, we need to have a real lens versus theoretical lens in these things.
Can we elaborate on that? How do we ensure decentralized AI moving forward? So Leemon, Mrinal, do you want to add to that?
Sure. So I don't think what you're going to find is that while we're training a new model, we have lots of decentralized computers working on pieces of it. That's probably not what you're going to see just because of the sheer amount of computation that is needed and the fast communication between the pieces. We'll have big data centers that cost $10 billion to do these training. However, the governance of being able to track it, you don't want to have to trust one person. This is too important. You really need a DLT to be able to do this. So the governance of this AI is decentralized. And then the inference. When you actually use the model and you ask it a question and get back your answer, that you really don't want centralized. I don't want to send my personal questions and documents I want summarized to some server run by some person who I don't even know who they are. I want this pushed out to the edge. I want on-premises AI inference where I'm asking the question to my phone and a chip on my phone is answering it. Or I'm asking my laptop and a chip in my laptop is answering it. This, of course, requires advances in chips, but this is something we have to do as a species. Humanity has to get to the point where the AI, at least the inferencing, at least asking it questions and getting back an answer, happens locally. Very important.
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. The only thing I'd add is because it acts as an excellent governance layer on top of it, the DLT technology, it also enables some other quasi-decentralized properties. For example, if someone's created an excellent insurance quote model based on actuarial tables that go back a certain amount of time, their ability to now stamp it, say that these are all the data sets I've used, and then resell it to others, instead of them having to retrain the model all over again. It's way cheaper for 2 or 3 insurance companies to do this once, continue training it, and license it to everyone else, than to have every single insurance company, waste billions or trillions of compute cycles to have their own, versions of it. Curated applications are, what companies have been using for the last few decades. And we can enable that in artificial intelligence as well, as long as it's governed in a way that's immutable and trustworthy.
Definitely.
Can I add just one thing? Not to be a broken record or lose sight of kind of where the stuff starts, but certainly in healthcare, 97% of the data is institutional. It's on-prem, it's private. Nobody wants to let it out, even if you really incentivize it, or even if they really saw the benefit, because they're more worried about compliance, risk of kind of aversion. So I think that's something that we kind of need to put our kind of brain around, which is, okay, if the data is going to be siloed, how do we impute the AI in a way that really, kind of is sustainable, it allows the benefits. And I feel like that's one of the issues that hopefully we're working on. That's, again, to me, one of the biggest reasons why DLT, why Hedera is because you kind of need to find a way to at least provide a kind of discovery on that data without moving it, or having the contractual access, more likely even to move it.
Right. Are there any other challenges that you guys want to discuss in terms of ensuring that this, moves forward smoothly?
Mm-hmm. So another challenge, I think, for AI, yes, and for DLTs helping with it, is the whole question of what if you don't have a data set from one company or 3 companies? What if you have 10,000 people who have volunteered to let you use their data in exchange for a fraction of the license fees? Well, that's actually something that makes sense because we need data from so many people. It may not be one company that has all the data we need. We may actually want to collect data from everybody who's sending tweets, getting permission. Hey, can I use your tweets in exchange for giving you a fraction of the licensing fees? In which case, we need to track ownership of microscopic fractions of this database and then do micro payments to all those people automatically in real time. Okay, you need a DLT for that. I can't write you a check for 1/10 of a cent. The cost of doing so will exceed the 1/10 of a cent, but I can send you cryptocurrency for that. I can send you tokens for that. And so I think that what we see is that DLTs enable us to do this new kinds of business models where we are fractionalizing the ownership of the data that was used to create it, and we get people earning for that. And I'm very excited about those opportunities. As with many other areas, DLTs like Hedera make things so much faster and cheaper and simpler that we can now enable new kinds of business models that just weren't practical before.
I don't think I have anything technical to add to that, but one of the challenges that I think as an industry we face sometimes is people always think, oh, AI meets DLT, just like supply chain meets DLT. Every time something's exploding, sprinkle some DLT fairy dust on it and hope it gets better. Whereas in this case, this is actually real, right? Like it's not, the NIST standards recognize that blockchain is a great base layer for AI governance, serious, systems integrators. And honestly, like if it wasn't for like the support from IBM, Sham in particular, we wouldn't have gone down this path. If we thought enterprises wouldn't take this seriously, would have never gone down that path. So I just, caution everyone that there is still misunderstanding of DLT technology. People associate it with, the worst stuff they see in the press, which mostly is noise. And if you actually focus on what the technology does, it's actually incredibly useful. And I think battling those misconceptions is going to be important for these kind of systems to see their true potential.
One additional thing to add. So I think we really need to be intentional about context of AI. So I don't think it's realistic that all of us will need to, or would make sense to use, Anthropic's 100 trillion parameter model, right? I think that there are scenarios, and I'll give you an example. We're working on, I mentioned the organ data. The very large majority of the data is structured data. So what we actually have to do in reality is we have to do a huge amount of pre-training of that data before the AI is useful, or we can do it in a cost-sustainable way. So I think one of the things I was chatting with Leemon about this, one of the things we're looking at is what are other options that are context relevant, maybe with smaller models, maybe even a whole new breakthrough, like for instance, liquid foundation models. That is not the conventional things that we're seeing right now being developed by OpenAI and Anthropic primarily, that essentially requires $100 billion investment. I'm actually optimistic that there is context in that area. Again, you got to pick and choose your use case. It's not going to apply for everything. It's not going to work for everything. But I think that there are some predictive use cases and time series use cases where I think there is much smaller, much more efficient modeling that we can tap into that could actually work. And you don't need to have these giant, trillion parameter models to use.
I'm really excited about this. My background is actually AI. And so LLMs being discretized down to 1 bit or 1 trit, that's almost not even the same thing anymore. And you're talking about liquid models. And all these things are just, we are advancing so fast right now with all these different ways of doing things. It's a very exciting time to be in AI.
Definitely. I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about why Jim and Mrinal, why your projects are built on Hedera and the benefits of Hedera. So Mrinal, do you want to kick us off and explain, why Prove AI is using Hedera?
Yeah, there's several reasons. Instead of naming 10, I'll just name 2 or 3. So first of all, I think there's a huge cultural match, meaning the Hedera infrastructure, and Leemon, correct me if I get any of this wrong, seems very purpose-built for safe enterprise use cases. And that goes right down to how the council is constructed, etc. Meaning there's just a lot more guarantees around permanence, around policies, and knowing that everything's going to work well. And I think it's very, very important to have cultures aligned. And then there's a lot of technical things that also make a lot of sense for us. First, since our product is primarily about audit and tracking and tracing things, instant finality, heavy time synchronization are very important to us. And if you look at a lot of DLTs out there, they can get desynced, blocks can get orphaned, and that's like a non-starter if you're using it for audit purposes. Over and above that, the smart contracting capability is completely Turing complete, which means the flexibility on how you set triggers, how you set alerts is, it's only limited by your imagination. And then finally, and there's lots more I could go into, but the fact that things like native USDC integration, stablecoins, for example, exists. The fact that, at least from a regulatory standpoint, Hedera has been incredibly judicious and conservative in how they've constructed things, hence being, welcomed by enterprises, is really, really valuable to us. Because at the end of the day, we're selling a product that is telling enterprises, hey, we're going to let you unleash your AI potential and keep you safe. You've got to have a platform that also reflects those values. And we think we found the right partnership there.
Wonderful. Jim?
Yeah, I'm certainly going to echo ditto on all of that. Additionally, I would say we came for the technology, but we've stayed because of the community. So we're heavily involved, I am and Acoer is, with the HBAR community and the Hedera community. And I think, it's weird. It's like paradox because we're here to do trustless work, yet we actually need the trust of somebody like Leemon and Mann. So I not to be kind of facetious about it, but that actually really is the case because, if we're building stuff that we're trying to improve cancer with, building it on fully anonymous technologies, people we don't know, sounds good and sounds possible in theory, but in reality isn't. I'm not going to put my political capital and our reputation on the line for an organization that I have no real visceral feeling about. So that in some ways, I think is echoing the governing council, but it's also really about very specific leadership and people's ability to kind of like seem like like you were saying, they're going to be around, they're going to be reliable, they're going to be as individuals trustworthy. It seems weird, but kind of feel like that actually is still quite relevant.
When enterprises that you work with here that you're using Hedera, do they, what are their thoughts on that? Do they know what Hedera is? Do you have to explain it to them?
Hell no. Yes. To be honest with you, Rachel, we're actually very proactive about it. We think one of our differentiators is that we are pervasive and preemptive about blockchain, Hedera, and the why. Many times, I give an example with our Health Data Explorer product, which is used by a number of counties in this kind of opioid tracking, mortality tracking. They really don't. They would have never asked for, hey, please put a blockchain and we want to have immutable verifiability of your data. But what they do care about is, can you prove to me that when your chat companion is giving me something or you're doing all these analytics, can I trust it? That's what they really care about. Ordinarily, it's a discovery process. It's like an e-discovery or it's a, like random sampling. We've flipped it into a real-time, at your whim, anytime you want to, full reporting that's available literally as a transaction happens, going back to your comment about finality in 3 to 5 seconds. So we have very heavily leaned into it. But to be clear, we build software that's functionally relevant, as opposed to going to the market and say, hey, look, we're doing Web3, and by the way, like our product. So, but yeah, absolutely. That's the way we kind of treat it.
Mrinal, do you want to add to that?
So in terms of when we tell customers about Hedera, many of them know already, which is great. The ones that don't know typically just don't know that much about blockchain in general, and that's a whole different conversation. But yes, most people know it's a very well-known blockchain, especially in the enterprise space. So there's not been any issue there. But for the marketing folks, some people do get confused many people like this happened with one customer. I explained it, and they're like, "Oh, Hashgraph." So the terms get like, and I think that came down to like there was that huge marketing moment, right? Like I don't remember whether it was WSJ, the picture of the tree, like showing that was super organic, and that's like caught in people's memories. But no, it's very well known. There's never been any pushback, unless people just aren't blockchain literate in the first place, and then you kind of have to start from the primordial beginnings of the technology just to let them know what's actually happening under the hood.
Wonderful. Leemon, did you want to add anything there?
No, it's just great. I love the way that everyone is reacting to it and building on it and excited about it. And I appreciate what you guys are doing. That's very exciting. And you're saying you talk to people and they know about Hedera, and that's exciting. We have a great community, and our community is a real asset. They are just really good people.
Yeah. Leemon, quick question. Do you think that as the prices of crypto, as crypto prices go up right now, we're going to see more of a desire for customers to want to build on Hedera? Do you think that has anything to do with it?
Well, I don't know about prices, but I really shouldn't be talking about prices. But what I do think is that there is a great deal of excitement right now about the whole world of Web3. And this excitement has been growing recently. And there are some indications of that, which you might have noticed. But I think that the excitement is real, and that as more people get drawn in by the excitement, they discover, wait, there's something actually there. And so the whole industry is benefiting from that, and Hedera is benefiting from that. And as people start to compare and look at what Hedera is, people get very committed to building on Hedera, and I'm very excited about that.
For sure. Okay, we have a few minutes left, so I just want to open up to some final thoughts from all of you. So Jim, do you want to kick us off with some final thoughts, what you're hoping to see in the future in terms of AI and DLT, or just anything in general?
Yeah, I mean, selfishly speaking, Rachel, I would like, we talk about real world assets and real world utility, but I think there are some underserved use cases and underserved communities and an intersection of both. For instance, healthcare in Africa, where I think we need to revisit it, because I feel like it got a very bad reputation of being just this ICO, kind of hungry hippo, as opposed to like real use cases. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that people here actually kind of maybe ask me questions and say, hey, look, what is this about? Like, what is this mortality or organ data or whatever? Because it's real and it's needed. However, it's not really well understood. And I think actually you can do well, you can do good, you can create a moat for Hedera because the technology definitely supports it.
Wonderful. Mrinal?
I just want to close that. Yeah, very, very excited to be, building Prove AI on Hedera and to be part of the community. If there was a selfish call to action, if anyone, the council members all are, titans of industry, everyone who's building, AI products going forward, we're here to help, and we're part of the community. And, we'll be eating our own dog food because we're building it on our network. And so please reach out to us if there's any questions on how you want to govern your AI, how we can help you increase its transparency, make sure you're compliant, but also efficient and innovative. We're here to help, and, just very excited to be part of the ecosystem.
Leemon?
I am also excited about the ecosystem, excited about what you guys are doing. I can't wait to see the future.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, we've still got a minute left. Leemon, anything that you want to tell us about upcoming at Hedera or anything like that?
So we keep having exciting people join the council, like the NSC, and we keep having exciting applications like these. And I would just say, stay tuned for more of both. We have a lot of things coming.
Wonderful. Great. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And this was a wonderful panel. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you to the Hedera team, to Mans, to everybody.